Hi, Brina.
It's Jason.
We're Baguette Bound.
Today we're going to talk about why we chose Southwest France and why we think it's the best part of France.
I know, it's a big claim, but...
We got evidence.
All right, and we're going to talk about affordability, cost of living. We're going to talk about the weather. We're going to talk about geographical location and natural environment. Stay tuned. Here we go.
Okay.
Number one, when we first started thinking about doing this, we were like, we need a place that's affordable.
Pretty important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were coming from the US, and while we were there, we were living in Colorado right before we moved. The housing was very expensive. So affordability was at the forefront of our mind when we came.
Not just very expensive, but I mean, we were living in like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, pretty small, what was it, like 1,700 square feet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like normal middle class house with a small yard in a perfectly nice but nothing fancy neighborhood. That thing sold for over $700,000 when we moved out.
You can do a lot with $700,000.
You can buy a chateau in Southwest France,
Yeah.
but you can get something similar to that for under $200,000.
Around $2,000, yeah,
And
easily.
that was something if we decided to stay here long term, because we didn't want to rule anything out before we came, we wanted a place that it could be possible for us to actually buy a house,
Yeah.
which was feeling impossible
Cost
in
of
the
living
US.
was really important. Paris is wonderful. Paris is expensive. Housing is
Yes, it
expensive.
is.
Food is expensive. Other areas of France that we were really attracted to, kind of near the Alps, something kind of mountainous and snowy like we were in Colorado. But
And Annecy.
it's a very beautiful
Beautiful.
place, but also expensive.
Yeah. Same thing for the Côte d'Azur.
Yeah, the beautiful French Riviera. Wonderful place. Very
Expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah. So as we looked at Southwest France, we knew just statistically and looking at houses online that it was more affordable, particularly with housing. This was kind of one of the big things. And of course, just like anywhere else, that's not true of every single square mile of Southwest France,
There are
right?
many expensive houses.
Bordeaux is
Yeah.
expensive. You can find expensive, nice houses here too. But in general,
Yeah.
it was a lot more affordable. So cost of living, that was ding, ding, ding.
Check mark, Southwest
Check mark,
France.
Southwest France. Number 2 was the weather. What was one of the biggest things we discovered in Colorado and we didn't want to leave behind?
The seasons. We wanted 4 full seasons. After living in Texas for a long time,
Houston specifically.
In Houston, we realized the value of having 4 seasons throughout the year.
Instead of just hot and humid or raining 100% of the time.
Yeah.
We love you, Houston, but not your weather.
Southwest France is very temperate. It's very pretty. So summers, you've got highs kind of in the mid 80s on a typical day. In the winter, lows somewhere above freezing. You get a few cold, freezing days each year. But in general, very temperate, very nice, very beautiful.
Yeah.
But you do get the 4 full seasons. It's warm, cool weather. You can get outside. It gets pretty toasty in the middle of summer. In the winter, you need your jacket. It's nice to start a fire. Leaves are changing in the fall.
Yeah, that's ultimately the thing that I wanted the most was to actually feel the change of the seasons. And, when it's around Christmas and you want to make mulled wine and hot cocoa, that it's actually cold. And you want those things to see. Spring is my favorite season and seeing all the buds come out and the flowers. And for it to be warm enough to actually feel good to get in the pool a couple of months a year. I mean, Jason's family is from Michigan, and I remember his mom talking about sometimes even getting in the pool in the summer,
It's too cold.
it's too cold. So yeah, not only did I kind of want to feel those changes and the rhythm of the seasons after loving it so much in Colorado, there's activities that go with each season that you look forward to, and having the weather kind of match those is something that I didn't want to give up. Downside that I will say, we loved, in Colorado, it would be cold and sunny through the winter. Oh, that was so nice.
Yeah.
And I have to say, here, it rains a lot in the winter. Matter of fact, I'll show you right now. I mean, it's not too gray. There's definitely rain and gray skies. That's what winter is here.
Yeah, it's cloudier. It
Yeah.
rains more often in the winter.
And so you don't really get snow. So but I know that for some people that might be huge, right? If you are someplace where you're getting feet and feet and feet of snow and gray skies. So not a big deal, but just one of those things that I think is by the time spring comes, I am kind of like ready for the sun to come back and it to stop raining.
Yeah, it is a nice break in the spring too. It becomes a real reawakening. The sun's back, the flowers are out.
Yeah. And all that rain makes things really green here, which we'll talk about as one of the 4 things that we really like about it. Okay, so third was geographical location. This was kind of big because we knew we wanted to live in the countryside. We wanted village life. We wanted to experience that.
But we still wanted access to things too.
Right.
Culture, cities, airports, train stations, museums, hospitals. The things of everyday life were important as well. So where we're at now, we're kind of surrounded. So we could drive an hour and a half to 2 hours and we'll be in Bordeaux, one of the major cities. A little over 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hour drive, we're in Toulouse, another very large, beautiful city. We're 2 hours from the Atlantic Ocean, maybe 3.5 to 4 from the Mediterranean. So you've got 2 ocean options.
Sorry, this fly is like determined to be a part of the video. I don't know if you've seen him, but...
In the mountains. We're not far from the mountains.
Right, the Pyrenees along the Spanish border, which is different skiing than the Alps, but you can still ski in the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
So that was pretty amazing, all in under 3 hours to be close to more than one major French city. With all the government services, the culture, the museums, the large hospitals if you needed something, and then also the mountains, the ocean. I mean, you think about outside of New England, I mean, we're from Texas, so to be able to get to all those things with, in most cases, like between 2 and 3 hours is amazing.
So different than...
So that was a big plus.
All that said, out here, kind of in the country in Southwest France, there's trains, but they're not running all the time. Every hour a train comes through. We are still over an hour into the major cities like Toulouse and Bordeaux.
Yeah. So you can be in Paris in 2 hours from Bordeaux, which is amazing. Yeah. But for us, you still got to get to the train station. You still got to take a train an hour into Bordeaux. But it's still feasible. I mean, I have met a friend for lunch in Paris before and been home all in the same day. So it's totally feasible. I think the other thing was, we have 2 major airports close to us. The, one in Bordeaux and the one in Toulouse.
Yeah.
But it's major airport seems to have a slightly different meaning in Europe than in the U.S.
It is. Lots of flights, but not everywhere.
Whereas you can get everywhere from Paris.
Yeah. If you want to fly back to the U.S., you probably have to be in Paris. From both Bordeaux and Toulouse, you can get a lot of places in Europe, but not everywhere. So sometimes we have to bounce between the two. There may just not be as many options at each airport as we were accustomed to as in the major cities in the U.S.
Yeah. And I think we bring that up only because, to me, growing up in the U.S. and in Texas, between Houston and Dallas, to me, I think I just thought a major airport is a major airport. And you can probably get most places if you're in a major city. And I think that was my expectation around Bordeaux and Toulouse. And they are still major airports, but it's not quite the same scale as the U.S. Paris is more like a major U.S. airport, right? Where you can go everywhere, nonstop flights back across the Atlantic.
Transportation is still... kind of hub is Paris.
Yeah.
So often you do have to go through Paris either by train or by plane.
Okay, last one, the natural environment. We thought about, for example, we looked at the south of France, some areas that are less expensive than the Côte d'Azur. So if your heart is dreaming of the south of France, look, just not right in Provence.
Go west. Closer to Spain.
Exactly. And it will
saves you quite a bit of money.
Yes. And those Mediterranean dreams, they may not be gone yet.
Yeah.
But it's more of an arid, olive trees and it's beautiful.
Very pretty.
But I don't know, it wasn't what my soul wanted.
Yeah, it didn't speak to us. Where we're at here, it's green, it's verdant, it's lush.
Rivers.
You've got
trees.
Kind of a wonderful mix of river valleys, broad plains with rolling hills sometimes. You've got vineyards, you've got, fields of corn, sunflowers in the spring and summer.
Oh, best.
You've got fruit orchards on either side. In the spring and summer, you see the prune and apple trees blossoming out. They're just gorgeous to drive around in.
Yeah, so it's we're in really the agricultural heart, and you
It is.
So the markets, I mean, it's amazing. You buy fruit that is like from the village over. Strawberry season lasted forever because they just keep growing different varieties.
Yeah.
And it's so quick to get from farm to market that you can find them at the markets. I mean, all the markets in France are really great, but now that we've traveled some, we really appreciate just how amazing the produce is at our local ones because we're so close to where so much of it is produced. So yeah, it just felt like the right fit for the kind of what I wanted to see out the kitchen window every day. I would say the only thing that we still kind of miss from Colorado is
the mountains. We love the mountains. We love seeing the mountains. The Pyrenees are close.
The Pyrenees are close.
It's not a long drive.
Yeah, but it's not the same
They're
as...
not right out front.
They're not right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's not like in Boulder County where, you know, we would say, oh, you want to go for a hike this morning? And like in 15 minutes, we were at a trailhead. I mean, that's why it's expensive, right? So we do miss that a little bit, but it's also not as if we're living in the middle of the Sahara where we...
It's a trade-off we're good with.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think a lot of these things are, deciding where is the best place for you. Some of it's trade-offs, some of it's really personal preference.
Yes,
you
for
know?
sure.
We want to hear about where do you think the best place is in France? Or where are places you think that we need to see that we haven't?
We're always up for a trip.
Yeah. The next thing though, after you've picked a region, the next question we get really often is, how do you pick a specific village?
There's 1,000 of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
France in the countryside is the land of
so
villages.
So many villages.
So many. That's a whole separate video, which when we finish, we will link to in the description to give you some criteria to look for, how to figure it out from afar, and the things that we've learned in our first year. All right. Thank you for watching.
Okay. See you soon.
À bientôt.